Love has no age limits, or so we'd like to believe. The internet has made it easier than ever to connect with people, build relationships, and find companionship in places we never thought possible. But what happens when trust is misplaced? When the person on the other side of the screen isn't who they seem to be? For one 64-year-old woman from North Carolina, what started as an online romance quickly turned into a real-life nightmare. She traveled miles to meet a man she thought cared for her, only to face the unthinkable. A 64-year-old woman, looking for love and companionship, found herself entangled with a much younger man, just 23 years old. It was an age gap that raised eyebrows, but to her, it felt like a second chance at happiness. They talked for months, forming a bond that seemed real. Perhaps he made her feel youthful again, giving her the attention she had been missing. Despite warnings, doubts, or even her own hesitation, she packed her bags and traveled to meet him in person. It was supposed to be a romantic and exciting meeting, one that marked the beginning of a new chapter. But instead, it became her worst nightmare. What he did to her was beyond anything she could have imagined. What went so terribly wrong? Was he after money? Did she ignore red flags? And most importantly, could this have been prevented? As we uncover the chilling details of this case, you might find yourself questioning just how well you really know the people you talk to online. Stay with me as we walk through the events that led to this tragic encounter, the shocking crime that followed, and the justice, or lack thereof, that came after. Because in the world of online relationships, not every love story has a happy ending. And every true crime story, there's a person at the center, a real human being with dreams, struggles, and a life that, in an instant, takes an unimaginable turn. In this case, that person was Lynda Carter, a 64-year-old woman from North Carolina, a woman who, like so many others, just wanted to be loved. Lynda was kind-hearted, trusting, and hopeful. Friends and family described her as a woman who had lived a full life but had also faced her fair share of heartbreak. She had been married once before, but after her husband passed away, the loneliness slowly crept in. Though she had adult children and even a few grandchildren, there was still an emptiness in her life, one she hoped to fill with companionship. Lynda wasn't just a name in a news headline. She was a mother, a grandmother, a neighbor, a friend. She spent her mornings sitting on her front porch with a cup of coffee, scrolling through social media or messaging old friends. She loved gardening, painting, and volunteering at her local church. The people who knew her never imagined she'd become the victim of a tragic crime. But loneliness can make people take risks they never thought they would. In today's digital age, meeting someone online is no longer unusual. From dating apps to Facebook groups, people from all walks of life are forming connections without ever meeting face-to-face. And for older adults, online relationships can feel like a lifeline, especially if they're widowed, divorced, or simply tired of being alone. Lynda had grown weary of empty nights and quiet weekends. She had spent years watching couples walk hand in hand, wishing she had someone to share life's little moments with. So, when she met Ryan Mitchell, a 23-year-old man who showered her with attention, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Wanted. Desired. Important. At first, she might have been hesitant. A 41-year age gap is hard to ignore. What could a young man possibly see in her? But Ryan had all the right words, the perfect compliments. He told her she was beautiful, that age was just a number, that he didn't care what people thought. And she believed him. After all, why wouldn't she? Their online relationship grew quickly. They talked for hours, sending messages late into the night. Ryan told Lynda about his struggles, his dreams, his past. Maybe he even made her feel like a savior, like she was the one person who truly understood him. But was it real? There were signs, subtle but there. Did he ask for money? Did he avoid video calls? Did he make promises that seemed too good to be true? Maybe Lynda's best friend, Margaret Lane, warned her to be careful. Maybe her daughter, Emily Carter, told her it didn't feel right. But love has a way of blinding people to the truth. Linda wasn't naive, she was hopeful. And hope can be dangerous. Ryan was always busy when she suggested video calls, claiming he was shy or that his phone camera was broken. He would disappear for hours, sometimes days, only to return with sweet apologies and grand explanations. When Linda pressed him about meeting in person, he told her he wanted to, he just needed the timing to be right. Then came the small requests. Not outright demands for money, but subtle hints about struggling with bills, a broken laptop, or not having enough for groceries. Linda wanted to help. She convinced herself that it wasn't a scam, it was just kindness. Her best friend, Margaret Lane, warned her. "Linda, this doesn't feel right," she said more than once. But Linda dismissed her concerns. Her daughter, Emily Carter, was even more direct. "Mom, he's using you." But Linda didn't want to hear it. She had spent too much time invested in this relationship to believe it was a lie. And so, when Ryan finally said the words she had been waiting for, "Come see me. Let's finally be together," she didn't hesitate. She packed her bags, convinced she was traveling toward love. But in reality, she was walking straight into a trap. For Linda Carter, this trip was supposed to be a dream come true. After months of online messages, late-night conversations, and promises of a future together, she was finally going to meet Ryan Mitchell in person. She had played this moment over in her head countless times, imagining the smile on his face when he saw her, the warmth of his hug, the spark that would make their online romance real. But what Linda didn't know was that she wasn't stepping into a love story. She was stepping into a nightmare. With her bags packed and her heart full of excitement, Linda set off for the trip that would change her life forever. She had told a few close friends and her daughter, Emily Carter, about her plans, though she left out some details. Emily had been skeptical from the beginning and warned her mother not to go, but Linda brushed it off as overprotectiveness. "Ryan isn't like that," she assured her daughter. "I know him better than anyone." She had booked a one-way ticket, convinced she wouldn't need to return home anytime soon. She had dreams of a new beginning, perhaps even marriage. Ryan had promised her a future, and she believed him. But as soon as she arrived, things felt off. Ryan had told Linda he would pick her up from the airport, but when she landed, there was no sign of him. Instead, she received a text message. "Change of plans. Meet me at my place. I'll send you the address." It was strange, but she didn't question it. Maybe he had car trouble. Maybe he was nervous. She took a taxi to the location he provided, a rundown house in a quiet, unfamiliar neighborhood. It wasn't what she had expected, she had imagined something cozy, something welcoming. But love requires compromise, she told herself. What happened inside Ryan Mitchell's house that night was something Linda Carter never could have imagined. She had come to him with hope in her heart, believing she was finally about to begin a new chapter of her life. Instead, she found herself trapped in a nightmare, one that would end in tragedy. The moment Linda stepped inside Ryan's house, the atmosphere changed. The warmth and affection she had felt through their messages were gone. The young man who had once showered her with compliments now seemed cold, distant, even dangerous. She might have tried to laugh off the tension, telling herself it was just nerves. But the way he avoided eye contact, the way he locked the door behind her, and the way his smile never quite reached his eyes made something in her gut twist. Maybe she asked, "Ryan, is everything okay?" Maybe he gave her a vague response, brushing off her concerns. But deep down, Linda knew something wasn't right. Then came the moment when the illusion shattered. At some point that evening, the situation escalated. Did Ryan finally reveal his true intentions? Had he only lured her there for money, expecting her to hand over everything she had? Or was his plan something far more sinister from the beginning? Perhaps Linda realized, too late, that she was in danger. She may have tried to reason with him, to remind him of the connection they shared. But Ryan was no longer pretending to be her devoted online lover. He was something else entirely, something cruel and unpredictable. Maybe she tried to leave, but he wouldn't let her. Maybe she begged him to let her go. But Ryan had no intention of allowing that to happen. What he did next was the unthinkable. The attack was swift, brutal, and merciless. Whether he used a weapon, his bare hands, or a cruel combination of both, Ryan made sure Linda never had the chance to escape. The woman who had traveled miles for love was now fighting for her life against the very person she had trusted. But she never stood a chance. By the time it was over, Linda Carter, the loving mother, the devoted grandmother, the woman who just wanted to be loved, was gone. Her body was left behind in a house that had once symbolized hope for her. And Ryan? He wasn't the heartbroken young man she had imagined him to be. He was something far darker. Maybe he panicked after realizing what he had done. Maybe he had planned it all along. But one thing was certain, Linda had become another victim of an online relationship gone horribly wrong. And the world was about to learn the horrifying truth of what had happened to her. The disappearance of Linda Carter didn't go unnoticed. She had told her daughter, Emily Carter, and her best friend, Margaret Lane, about her plans to visit Ryan Mitchell. When she stopped responding to calls and messages, worry quickly turned into fear. At first, Emily tried to stay calm. Maybe her mother was just caught up in the excitement of meeting Ryan. Maybe she was busy or had bad cell service. But as hours turned into days, the silence became deafening. Margaret, who had been skeptical from the start, didn't waste time. "Something isn't right," she told Emily. Together, they contacted the police and reported Linda missing. Investigators started by tracing Linda's last known movements. They found out she had taken a flight to meet Ryan, but after that, the trail went cold. There were no signs of her returning home. The police reached out to Ryan, who seemed oddly indifferent. He claimed Linda had never arrived, saying she must have changed her mind or gone somewhere else. But his story didn't add up. Tracking down the truth. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered unsettling details about Ryan. He had a history of suspicious online relationships, some involving older women. There were whispers of financial scams, manipulation, and even threats. Phone records painted a different picture than Ryan's story. Linda had arrived, and she had made it to his house. Surveillance footage from the airport and taxi companies confirmed it. But then, nothing. No sign of her leaving. A search warrant was issued for Ryan's home. What investigators found was chilling. Inside Ryan's house, forensic teams uncovered clear signs of a struggle, broken furniture, bloodstains, and Linda's personal belongings. Her suitcase, phone, and wallet were still there, as if she had never intended to leave. Then came the grim discovery, Linda's body. Hidden in a shallow grave behind the house, she had been discarded like an afterthought. The cause of death was brutal, suggesting a violent struggle and a tragic end. Ryan's lies quickly unraveled. Under police questioning, his confident demeanor cracked. First, he denied knowing anything. Then he shifted blame, saying Linda had attacked him, and he had acted in self-defense. But the evidence told a different story, one of premeditation, deception, and cold-blooded murder. With overwhelming evidence, Ryan was arrested and charged with murder. The online lover who had once promised Linda a new beginning had become the reason her life was cut short. The news sent shockwaves through Linda's family and the community. A woman looking for love had fallen victim to one of the most dangerous aspects of online relationships, blind trust in the wrong person. As Ryan awaited trial, one thing became clear: justice would be served. But for Linda's loved ones, no punishment could ever undo the horror of what had happened. The brutal murder of Linda Carter left a deep scar on her family, friends, and community. A woman who had dedicated her life to loving others, her children, grandchildren, and even a man she believed cared for her, had met a tragic and undeserved fate. But as grief set in, so did the pursuit of justice. For Emily Carter, losing her mother in such a cruel way was unbearable. She had tried to warn Linda about Ryan Mitchell, but like many victims of manipulation, her mother had been too blinded by hope to see the danger. Now, Emily was left with the painful reality that she would never get to hug her mother again, never hear her laugh, never share another moment with her. Linda's best friend, Margaret Lane, was racked with guilt. She had told Linda to be careful, but she never imagined it would come to this. In interviews, Margaret described Linda as a kind soul who had always seen the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. The community in North Carolina, where Linda had lived for decades, came together to mourn her loss. Vigils were held in her honor, and social media flooded with messages about the dangers of online relationships. People who had never met Linda felt the weight of her story, realizing how easily a similar tragedy could happen to someone they loved. Ryan's arrest had been swift, but the road to justice was long. Prosecutors built a strong case against him, using digital evidence, forensic findings, and his own contradictory statements to prove his guilt. During the trial, details emerged that made the crime even more chilling. Ryan had a history of manipulating older women online, using them for money, validation, or entertainment. Linda had been his latest victim, but unlike the others, she had come to meet him in person, an opportunity he took full advantage of. Prosecutors argued that Ryan had lured Linda under false pretenses, knowing she trusted him. Whether his intention was to rob her, exploit her, or something even darker, one thing was clear: he never planned for her to leave his house alive. The jury didn't take long to deliberate. With overwhelming evidence against him, Ryan Mitchell was convicted of first-degree murder, fraud, and abuse of a vulnerable adult. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole, ensuring he would never hurt another woman again. While justice was served, it came at a heartbreaking cost. Linda's story became a cautionary tale, highlighting the dangers of online relationships, especially for vulnerable individuals seeking love and companionship. In her memory, Emily and Margaret worked with advocacy groups to raise awareness about online predators. They spoke at events, urging others to recognize red flags and protect themselves and their loved ones. Linda Carter had been looking for love, but instead, she found a monster. And though she was gone, her story would live on, serving as a warning to others: not everyone online is who they claim to be. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more gripping true crime cases that uncover the truth behind shocking family crimes. Your support helps us continue sharing these important stories and spreading awareness about the dangers lurking in the shadows. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We post new episodes regularly, diving deep into real-life cases filled with twists, deception, and tragic consequences.